This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Happy to have you here, my friend. A review of Carnival Dream this week out of Texas, and staff writer Richard Sims on deck with this week's cruise news. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doug.
So we didn't get a chance to talk last week, so going to catch up on a couple of stories, like the latest ship to join the Margaritaville at Sea fleet.
Yeah, this week is going to be sort of like that old bridal thing. And it's, I don't know, it's not a slogan, whatever it is, you know, something old, something new. We probably won't borrow anything, and I will try very hard not to work blue so that you don't have to have your finger on the censor button. But the first story is something that we missed last week because we weren't able to connect, and it's basically about the Margaritaville at Sea ship. It was formerly known as the Costa Fortune, and we knew that it was going to be joining Margaritaville for a while as their third ship. Now we know that when it begins sailing for its new home line, it'll be under the name Beachcomber. As that name implies, the theme will basically be all things beach. She'll become the largest ship in their fleet, carrying around 2,700 passengers at double capacity with a maximum capacity of 3,470. Now, for those of you who are keeping track of this stuff, that's about 1,000 more than the Islander, which is the ship that joined their fleet last year. As for what's on board, it'll be sort of a blend of brand favorites like the 5 o'clock somewhere bar, and then there'll be some new ones which they haven't yet announced. They also haven't announced the itinerary or home port. And I think that there might be a little bit of something of a surprise there because, you know, up until now, their ships have always sailed out of the same port. And the fact that they're saying that they're kind of making a thing out of we haven't released the home port yet makes me wonder if perhaps they're going to look elsewhere to sail this ship out of. They did say that more information will be released later in the summer. And honestly, this all is big news for this cruise line because it wasn't all that many years ago that we were kind of writing Bahama Paradise Cruise Line off entirely, which is what Margaritaville at Sea was before it became this. And you know, I remember us having, when they talked about bringing on another ship, we were like, yeah, right, sure. And now here comes the third. So good for them.
Yeah, and Buffett had a lot of ties to the Gulf Coast, so it could pop up over there. And
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. And here we go again with relaunching Titanic 2 for the, millionth time?
Yeah, sure they are, Doug. Sure. Okay, this is Clive Palmer. It's the same billionaire who's been trying to get this project off the ground for more than a decade. Now he says he will definitely secure a shipyard and he will definitely begin construction sometime in early 2026. Not only that, but he swears that the ship will be ready to welcome passengers on board by 2027. Now, compared to today's massive ships, the Titanic II, like the original, will be relatively small at only 9 decks. According to the Guardian newspaper, the cost is estimated to be between $500 million and $1 billion, which is, you know, kind of quite the price range. It'll either be this or double this. They're saying the ship will have 835 cabins, and they'll be broken up like this: 383 first class, 201 for second class, and 251 third class rooms. I'm assuming third class basically will be, you know, an interior. I don't think they're actually going to call it steerage, but maybe they will. Who knows? They are saying that people are encouraged but not required to dress in period like 1990s garb. And Palmer says that this would be more fun than sitting around counting his money. Personally, I think I'd sit around and count my money because, this just does not. I mean, we've been talking about this for years, and I don't understand why people keep rushing to think that he is actually going to do this. I don't think he is. And there's also a lot of people, and I kind of think I might be in this class, who think that the whole thing is just sort of in incredibly poor taste. You know, I don't know. Maybe it's a good idea. I I just don't know, but I also don't ever think it's happening.
Yeah, certainly bizarre. So meanwhile, 4 Carnival Cruise Line passengers were arrested in Bermuda this week.
Yeah, there's been no confirmation as to which ship they were sailing on, but the 4 passengers, I mean, we know it was a Carnival ship, and the 4 passengers were detained on board the ship after it was discovered that they had, well, a whole lot of drugs. It's believed they intended to distribute or sell the drugs in Bermuda, so they were detained on board and then disembarked into the custody of the local police. The scariest part of this is that among the many, many drugs, I mean, they had, the norm. They had gummies and THC vapes and stuff like that. But they also had a package of carfentanil, which is reportedly 100 times stronger than fentanyl. And I mean, I'm not a drug addict or a drug expert or anything, but I do know that fentanyl is an incredibly dangerous, incredibly addictive drug. This version of it, carfentanil, is so strong that it was once used to sedate elephants. Think about that. These people were having and ready to distribute drugs that were strong enough to sedate an elephant. There's no word on the ultimate fate of the passengers yet. The last reports were that the charges were pending and that they would, I'm assuming they would go to a court there in Bermuda. But Carnival released a statement that said, and I'm quoting, "We follow a zero-tolerance drug policy as we strictly comply with all applicable laws and regulations. And we also advise our guests that they can be personally subject to local law enforcement actions." You hear a lot these days, if you go on any message board or Facebook or pretty much anywhere, and you read reviews of cruises, it's amazing how often you hear people saying, I was on my balcony and I could smell the marijuana coming from the next balcony or for somewhere around. And so, I think that the cruise lines are sort of realizing that they have to really be careful here because it's legal in a lot of states, but it is not legal in the places they go. They have to go, and the cruise lines have to follow international laws. They have to follow, the maritime laws. So it's sort of a tricky area for them. But in this case, it didn't seem all that tricky. It was like this wasn't just casual drug use. This was a lot of drugs. And so they were handed over to the authorities.
Yeah, there's always a lot of confusion with legalities because people think the ship sails out of Florida, and if something is legal in Florida, it's okay to bring it on. But cruise ships operate under federal law and, of course, wherever they're going. I
have seen people talk about, will a cruise ship, legalize pot or begin serving, for example, Delta makes a THC water that is commonly available in some restaurants, and it's completely legal. And I could see Virgin Voyages saying, they're the kind of line that I could see saying, you know what, we're going to serve limited amounts of THC water drinks. But there are a lot of loopholes. And I am not saying that they are doing that. I'm not saying that they're thinking of doing that or planning of doing that. I'm just saying I could see it. But there would be a lot of loopholes that they would have to jump through before being able to do something like that.
And a lot of passengers disappointed as a ship went from delayed to canceled in a matter of hours.
Once again, we have technical issues wreaking havoc on a ship's schedule. This time it was the Celebrity Beyond. According to our friends at Cruise Fever, the sailing in question was supposed to begin on July 20th. But the day before, guests were notified that the cruise was going to be delayed by a day. No big deal. Not ideal, but hey, you're still going on a cruise, right? Well, maybe not, because next thing they knew, quicker than you can say drink package, they were being told that the sailing was canceled altogether. Now, I want to give Celebrity really big props here because they definitely did the right thing where the impacted guests were concerned. They got a full refund and a 100% future cruise credit. We were talking about another cruise recently. I can't remember what line it was, but it was canceled at the last minute and people got a full refund and then a 10% future cruise credit. And no, something like this. And that was actually a bucket list cruise, as I recall. This was a more normal cruise, but still, they gave them a full refund. They gave them a full future cruise credit. They also said they would refund up to $200 for domestic flights and $400 for international, as well as providing reimbursement for hotel stays. I mean, they basically did everything they possibly could. As of now, the Celebrity Beyond is supposed to sail on July 27th, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens.
And finally, one less ship sailing from Texas, well, for now, and one more ship for another port.
What I love about this particular story is they can be spun one of two ways. You can say, Carnival is pulling a ship out of Texas. Or you can do what Carnival's doing and say, we are expanding capacity in New Orleans, which is true. It is where the ship is going. The ship is the Carnival Dream, and it's going to be relocated in 2027 as part of their redeployment, and it will move to New Orleans. What's perhaps most notable about this is that the Dream has been home ported in Galveston for 8 years, which is a long run. And it's something of a homecoming for the Dream because the Dream sailed out of New Orleans before being moved to Galveston back in 2019. So when she gets there, she'll be joined, and we're talking New Orleans. When she moves to New Orleans, she'll join the Carnival Liberty, which means there'll be 2 Carnival ships sailing out of the Big Easy. As for Galveston, don't worry. There are going to be plenty of ships to sail on if you want to go out of that port. Carnival will have at least 3, maybe 4. MSC has a new terminal opening there. So yeah, there's no danger of losing its current standing as the fastest growing cruise port in the country. And if I'm not mistaken, speaking of the Carnival Dream, you are about to chat with somebody who just did a sailing on that ship out of Texas. Am I right?
Yep, and it's coming up next.
The world is constantly changing. Your place for news is still the same. Online and on demand at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
Eric and his family just returned from a 6-night cruise on Carnival Dream out of Galveston, Texas. It went to Costa, Belize, and Cozumel, and he joins us on the line to talk about it. How you doing, my friend?
All right, Doug. Good to be on here with you again.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, great to have you again. When did we speak last?
Before this one, I think was just November, and so we've spoken since then. So this one came pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I felt like I just spoke with you, but very nice. So a few months ago, you cruised, and now you're back at it again, Carnival Dream. We'll take a couple of steps back here. What made you want to jump on Dream for this 6-nighter?
You know, when we got back from the one on the Valor in November, it was the weekend before Thanksgiving. And so just a couple of days after that, we're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner with, my wife's family, and said, hey, let's book another one. Let's go again. And so here in South Louisiana, being a teacher, I get days off for Mardi Gras. And so we found one that lined up with that and decided to book it. And next thing we know, my wife's parents, they had booked as well. We had a couple other cousins that were going to go with us, but they weren't able to make the commitment. And we've not been on the Dream since, I think, 2019 when it was sailing out of New Orleans. And so we wanted to take this chance to hop back on. And the 6th night just happened to fit in the schedule the right way. And Galveston is not terribly far of a drive for us. So we decided to go ahead, hop on and do it.
Did you say multiple days off for Mardi Gras?
Yeah. So the district that I work in, we used to actually get an entire week off for Mardi Gras, but we kind of wanted some days back in our Christmas holiday. So now we get Monday through Wednesday off.
Okay.
So for this cruise, I only had to take just 2 days of vacation, and it was really nice. And my wife, she works for a cardiologist office, and she gets Mardi Gras day off. Mm-hmm. So she didn't have to take like a full week either. So it works out. It's vacation time for us folks down here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you make your way to Galveston. How was the embarkation for Carnival Dream, and how long did it take you from the curb to the ship?
So I remembered to set my timer this time because I always forget and just have to give you an estimate. And we parked by, I always get them mixed up. There's Terminal 25 and 28. whichever one is further west. We parked there, but that's not where we were embarking. We were getting on, I think, at Terminal 25. So it was a tiny bit of a walk, wasn't bad, but we did that on purpose because we would be debarking at Terminal 28, which was right where we parked. So, but we'll get to that later. But curb to ship was a little longer than normal. We're starting to learn that with the arrival appointment time on our boarding pass, I know Carnival's, at least here at Galveston, they're getting kind of funny about it. Because on ours, we booked the time from, I think, 10:30 to 11, so we wouldn't have to try to get down there as early. And we set foot in the building at 10:25, but apparently we were, almost already late for our appointment time because they had already started the lines for the 11 o'clock, which I thought was crazy. But anyway, but it kind of worked out because the lady looked at her pass and she said, "Oh, well, they're here for 10:30 and this is the line." And she said, "If y'all just stand here for 2 more minutes, we'll let you get in the 11 o'clock." Because we had our little one with us and she was starting to get a little antsy in the stroller. So luck would have it, we were able to get in front of the 11 o'clock line and just go straight on through. That was a blessing right there because it was chaotic. And we're not quite used to seeing Galveston like that. They usually have things, under control a little better. Mm-hmm. But I think that everybody was just getting there too early, and there's not really anywhere for people to wait. If you're there early, they really don't have anywhere to put you. So I think it was kind of causing some problems. But once we got checked in, went up to the waiting area, I think we sat there for 10 minutes. So even with all of that chaotic, things ensuing, I think curb to ship was 45 minutes, mm-hmm. Which is a little longer than what we're used to there. But I don't know, for whatever reason, they were just having trouble getting everybody in order and getting them on. And it could have been, I know it's turnaround day. Disney ship was there. Carnival was there. Royal Caribbean was just up the street. So I know it was an incredibly busy day for them.
Now, you mentioned that you parked at the other terminal because you would be returning to that terminal. Is this something that Carnival tells you going in?
No. Thankfully, I do my homework on this kind of stuff. Because, when you have a toddler with you, mm-hmm. you try to shorten the walk at all costs. And so you have to go onto Port of Galveston's website, which they have it all laid out because their schedule is made months, years ahead of time. So I was able to find, okay, Dream is, going to be at Terminal 28 on this day. And then when we return, we're going to be, whichever. I think 28 is the one closer to the west. And then 25 is the newer, bigger one, a little bit to the east. Mm-hmm. But the parking where we parked at, it's what's called the express lot, and it's getting bigger because they have some abandoned railroad, tracks that mm-hmm. they're taking up. And it's, that is the place to park. And if anyone's familiar with Galveston, no matter where you're coming from, if you're coming from the airport or the mainland or whatever, you just, as soon as you get on the island, you cut a left and you follow the old port road through all the plants and stuff, and it brings you right to the parking lot. So we were stressing about all of the Mardi Gras traffic because they were having parades at the same time that we were trying to get to the ship. But we were able to bypass all of that, go straight into the parking lot, and it ended up working out the same on the way back. But if we wouldn't have done our homework, then we would have been walking a lot more, and it would not have worked out. A lot of folks parked at the garage for the terminal where we were embarking, but we were more concerned about, okay, what's most convenient for us whenever we disembark, and it worked out beautifully.
Interesting they don't tell you that, because I know they do in Fort Lauderdale sometimes.
Yeah, it's really not their responsibility because they don't, the cruise line doesn't handle the parking.
Sure.
The one cruise port that seems to have the parking together is New Orleans, because mm-hmm. it's like there's one dedicated garage for each terminal, so there's no guessing. But it's sure. No complaints on parking really. It was nice, and the price was about what you would expect to pay. So it was we were happy with it.
What were your first impressions this go around?
Yeah, we realized how much we missed this ship. We've sailed on the Dream twice before. Mm-hmm. Actually, my very first cruise was on the Dream in 2013 or 2014, I forget, when it was in New Orleans. And then our honeymoon cruise in 2019 was also on the Dream. Absolutely beautiful ship. And we've done the Dream, the Breeze, the Valor. We've done all of those multiple times. And the Breeze is the same class, but the Dream is just a little bit prettier. It's got that Joe Farkas touch everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, Dream was the last one that Joe Farkas actually went all in on. Magic, he did a couple of things like the theater and casino. Otherwise, it was mostly that new German design company, which also helped design the stateroom. So what did you think of your stateroom, and what kind did you have through the sailing?
So we did something different this time. We booked what's called a deluxe ocean view. And I don't think every class has this. I know the Dream class has this. This is actually on deck 2 forward. And it's an ocean view room, except it has an extra bathroom with a sink and a tub in it. And this was worth its weight in gold. It was absolutely incredible because we have a toddler who likes to take baths, and it was perfect for her. And having that second half bath was super nice for getting ready. Stateroom was kind of as we expected it. Everything was really, really well kept, super, super clean. And interestingly enough, the window on this one, so because it's further forward, the window on this one, the way it's shaped, it has like a big giant square alcove, and it's actually big enough to where sometimes at night the three of us would get up in there so we could sit by the window and watch it. So it was really, really cool. The air condition, this was, out of all the cruises we've done, this is only the second time we've really had an issue. And I think it's because of the positioning of the room. Most of the time we stay on deck 7, 8, or 6. So it's like nothing but staterooms. But on 2, you're kind of open to the atrium, the rest of the ship. Like it's a stairwell that separates it, but you've got all that open air. And we found that kind of plays a role in the AC. So at night, sometimes we'd get a little bit warm, but it was never really anything to complain too much about. Water pressure, all that stuff was good. Outlets were enough for us because we're pretty unplugged whenever we go on cruises. So as long as one person can have a charged phone just to keep track of the time, that's really all we need. We were a little concerned about the location at first, but it ended up being really convenient. We were underneath like where the stage is for the theater. I keep wanting to say Encore Theater, but I think that's the wrong ship. We never really heard anything because by the time we were ready to turn in for bed, the shows were all over. But it was really convenient. If we wanted to go to the dining room, we would just go straight to the back of the ship, go up one flight of stairs, or if we wanted to go to the lobby, we were right there. You just go up one flight, theaters up one flight. So besides just going to the Lido deck, everything was super, super convenient. That was the surprising thing about it. And we probably would book that same type of stateroom again. Being on the front, every once in a while we would feel a little bit of a bump if we hit a wave, but nothing too bad.
Gotcha. When you were pricing this deluxe ocean view against other ocean view cabins on Carnival Dream, was there much of a premium on it?
I was surprised. There really was not. I think this is one of those hidden secrets. This is just one of those things that I happened to find scrolling through Facebook Reels. And I said, wait, where is this? We've got to find this. And it's a certain category. So when you go on the deck map, the deck plan, you have to find it and see exactly where it's at. But when we went to book it, it was because we were just going to do a regular interior. And I want to say that maybe the cost was, I don't know, total, maybe $150 more total than an interior. So we were pretty surprised by that.
All right, well, let's talk about the food on Carnival Dream. We'll start at the top at the buffet area. How was that? And did it ever feel too crowded?
I'm finding the pattern with this is the weather. This entire trip, we had textbook perfect weather. And so it seemed like most of the time the crowds were pretty minimal. We're pretty careful about when we go to the buffet. A lot of our first time, folks that go with us, they'll try to go there as soon as we get on, but we typically avoid that. And we try to hit the buffet whenever it's a little bit, less conducive to crowds, but never once did we have trouble finding a place to sit. Even if we did happen to be there, during, peak mealtime, it wasn't an issue at all. The food on the buffet was great. We don't frequent it too often. Maybe if we just want a snack, between meals or something. Except the Carnival Deli, we usually put a hurting on that place because it's really good. And then our toddler, of course, she's going through the stage right now where if it's pizza and ice cream, She likes it, so I'm pretty sure that some of the nights that the ice cream machine was shut down was because she was depleting their inventory too fast.
That's awesome. So as far as out by the pool, of course, you have Guy's Burger Joint, Blue Iguana Cantina. How was the poolside offerings?
Yeah, they were great. We were able to grab Guy's quite a few times, just happened to be passing by at the right time. And Blue Iguana, I always try to at least one morning eat there for breakfast. I specifically go because they have this habanero salsa that you can put on there, and it is to die for. It will light you up. But it's very, very good. We were pleased with both. And a little secret I found about the Blue Iguana: there's always a line on the burrito side, but if you go stand on the taco side, it's like people forget they'll do tacos for you too.
Yeah.
So I was in hog heaven, my fresh made shrimp tacos every day.
There you go. So as far as the main dining room, what type dining did y'all have, and how was your food and service in there throughout the 6 nights?
Service is always great. We have yet to have poor service on Carnival dining. We did the early time, which I believe was 6:15. Just keeping our toddler in mind, because the last cruise we brought her on, we had to do late, and it just didn't work out well with her. But this time it did. We got there for right on time. They had us seated at a table, and by the time the second night came around, the servers, they already had our daughter's food waiting, because she's 2.5, almost 3. So getting her to sit at a dinner table is a pretty good feat. But her food was ready every night we got there. Her food was ready. No problem. But all of the food was great. I was trying to think today on my way home, there was one dish out of everything that we got that I didn't like. I'll probably remember before this is over, but we tried so much stuff. With 4 adults at the table, we were able to order and pick and choose and kind of share some things, and everything was phenomenal. And, I think we've had this conversation before. Whenever we order steak in the main dining room, we don't expect prime cuts anymore, because they're not. I think that's just something they've dialed back after the pandemic and trying to cut some costs. But I'm not going to complain, because, it's all included and everything. But it was the clams, the linguine and clams. That's the only thing that none of us liked. It just had a super, super fishy taste to it. But no, everything else that we got in main dining room was phenomenal. It was great. They kept us well fed.
Does the Carnival Dream have like the Emeralds selection on the main dining room menu?
They do. And somebody at the table every night would get something from there. He's from down here in South Louisiana, our neck of the woods. So a lot of the stuff that he does on there is pretty familiar. But what I noticed is some of the things are different, prepared differently from different ships. Because I can remember specifically, there was I think it was a crawfish strudel bread that I got on the Carnival Valor back in November. And I said, as soon as we get on the Dream in March, I said, I am going to get that crawfish strudel. Well, it was different. It wasn't fixed the same way. It was good, but it was different. So I know there are some variations there, but yeah, there's always an appetizer, a main. Some nights there's more, some nights there's less, but it's some pretty good stuff. Any
specialty venues that you may have hit up on this cruise?
They have the steakhouse and the chef's table, but we didn't do any of those. And actually, my wife tried one day for lunch to go up to, I forget the name of the pasta place on this one. It's on deck 11, like you go into the Lido and you go up to 11. And during the lunch hours, it's complimentary. They prepare pasta for you with whatever you want on it. But it was like a 2-hour wait. So she came back down and said, no, not doing that. You can go up there for supper, but we didn't do any specialty dining on this one. It's been a little while since we have. So we just decided to stick with, everything that was included on this one.
How did the entertainment stack up for you?
Yeah, we were able to enjoy quite a bit of entertainment. We took shifts. A good thing having the grandparents is we were able to, my wife and I could sneak off a couple of nights and go see some things. So we got to enjoy a lot of the live music, and actually the music around the ship. Our daughter, she likes to sit and watch and listen to String Trio, the country artists. All those were wonderful. Brought our daughter to some of the Dr. Seuss things, and that was really neat. That was fun. We did also get to see some of the comedians, and I've got a couple of the fun times of looking through see if I can find their names. The two guys on this ship were absolutely phenomenal. We didn't make it to any of the rated R shows, but we did do the PG shows. And they were good. And I think we've had this conversation before that if you can make a PG crowd laugh, then you're doing pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
But I can't find what their names were. They were great. One guy was like improv, and he would go out into the audience and get them to get involved. It was just really good. And a couple of nights, my wife went with her parents to the production shows. I'm not sure how long Carnival runs their production shows. But now that we're cruising more often, I do kind of wish that they would change them out a little more because they've been doing the same ones for the last 3 or 4 cruises that we've been on. And not that they're bad. They're phenomenal productions. But a little variety would be good. But I know there was some excitement. I think that second to last night, my wife said that they were doing some things up on the stage and one of the cast members actually landed wrong or something and twisted or broke an ankle or something mid-show. So she said that was kind of interesting to watch them clean that up and then, go on about with the show.
That's got to be painful, especially if it's your livelihood.
Well, and she said that, he noticed that he just kind of walked off the stage real quick, but she said they hit it very well. But in the rest of the show, they all just kind of sat on their bar stools and just sang the rest of the song. So I guess they were a little worried about losing any more cast members.
How about the casino? Always a popular place these days. Smoke situation in and around it?
It was pretty strong this time. And that's one downside of the Dream class ships is sometimes you can smell it as soon as you walk on. Now, this one wasn't quite that bad. It did kind of go in waves. It just depended on the time of day and who was in there. Obviously, sea days, it was a lot more smoky. And there was one evening whenever we actually could smell a little bit of it in our stateroom because our stateroom's on 2, and the only thing separating us from the lobby and the open air is just a stairwell. So I guess it did creep in there that night, but it never really bothers us too much. But it wasn't anything out of the ordinary, nothing more than what we were expecting.
Speaking of smoke, but a different kind, do they use drug dogs while boarding in Galveston?
Yes, they do. Yeah. And actually, matter of fact, I think 3 or 4 cruises ago, my wife actually got stopped because she had some kind of hand lotion in her fanny pack, and apparently the dog alerted to the scent of whatever it was. So they kept the hand lotion and sent her on her way. But yeah, we see them every time, and they've got quite a few of them because it'll be as you're walking up towards the gangway, and even before that, they'll just have you pass by. You don't have to set your bags down or anything. Mm-hmm. Because in Galveston, once you start moving, they don't let you stop. But the dog will just pass by you, and if he alerts, then they'll pull you to the side and send you off for questioning and searching and all that. But I feel like this is kind of a regular occurrence on our cruises. We did get to see another guy walked out in handcuffs again.
Oh, geez.
So it's like some people think they can just get away with whatever. I know probably the most common thing. People try to bring some green stuff on there so they can have that on their balcony, but they're pretty strict about it. No tolerance.
Yeah, there's always a few in every crowd, right? Let's talk about the sea days now. But first off, your daughter, does she do the kids club or a supervised type of kids club at her age?
Yeah, so we brought her the first day. You check in. We just wanted to explore it. Not that we were going to dump her off the whole time, but we just wanted to give her that option because she is in daycare 3 days a week. And so she's used to playing with other kids. I mean, she's like me. She'll talk to a fence post. She doesn't meet a stranger. So we went and checked in, and they showed us around. And this was my first time actually seeing the facilities. And man, we were impressed. And, the number of workers they have in there. And they even gave us a phone so that if they needed us, they could text us, they could call us. And, it was a cell phone that we could keep with us the whole time. And so we brought her back the next day, and boy, she loved it. They had all the little activities that they did. And then she just decided that she didn't want to go anymore after that first day. But the little bit of time that we had her in there, we were impressed. I mean, we walked in to go get her, and we didn't really tell the people that we were coming to get her. So we just kind of wanted to see what was going on in there. And they really do take good care of those kids in there. And it's a lot of fun. There's a special place for those people that are able to do that because there were some pretty wild kids in there.
Gotcha. Now, as far as the sea days, crowds and congestion, and is she able to play in the splash pad?
Yes. And this is usually the highlight of the cruise for everybody because she dominates that thing. And it's so funny because, the lifeguards, they're used to seeing the kids will come, they'll play for 5 minutes. Not Ava. If we let her, she would live out there. And I think the first sea day, she was out there for 2.5 hours. I just kept putting on the sunscreen, but she loved it. And it was money well spent for her to be able to do that as part of the cruise. And I think every sea day, and even on some port days, we were out there, and we were surprised because there were a lot of kids on the ship. I think they told us before we got on that there was like 900 something kids boarding on this one. But to our surprise, it never was really, really crowded up there. And it's super nice, super convenient. Lido's right there, 2 decks below. So it was nice. Yeah, she liked it. And the crowds overall on sea days, it wasn't anything that we wouldn't expect. Mm-hmm. The weather was perfect. So, outdoor spaces were always full, but never overly crowded. Nothing to complain about for sure. I'm wanting to say that it was the morning that we were going to Costa Maya. The wind was phenomenal. One of my morning routines that I like to do, especially on the Dream class, and I think even the Conquest class has this. If you go deck 7, 8, 9, somewhere around there, sometimes even 10, you just go all the way to the front of the ship, keep going, and there's always a sign on the door that says don't open because it's windy, but it still opens. And there's these several decks of just private space out there. It's open to the public, but there's nothing out there. There's a couple benches, couple chairs, but it's just a good place to see off the front of the ship. The wind was phenomenal. Like I could almost not stand up out there that day because it was extremely windy. But yeah, no, sea days are pretty typical. It was nice. It was nice to finally have a cruise with perfect weather for the duration of the trip.
Yeah, it is a great spot. Did you find that you were by yourself up there a lot?
All the time. The time. Out of all the cruises I've done, I think I've run into somebody one time out there. And of course, I'd be curious to see what it looks like from the bridge, because on this ship, you can go above or below the bridge. Mm-hmm. And I think the bridge is on 9, I think. So I would go 8 and go out. And, I'm right there into the bridge, and I'm looking up and I can't see anybody because it's all, mirror glass. And so they're probably wondering what this tourist is doing out on the front of the ship.
Right.
But it's nice. It's peaceful. It's quiet. And you get, especially if you go on top of the bridge and go to the edge, because you can see the entire length of the ship on both the port and the starboard side. It's really, really neat. All
right. So you leave Texas and your first port of call was Costa Maya. How was your day there?
It was great. We did something a little different. And actually this entire trip, we didn't book any excursions. This was my wife's first time to go to Costa Maya. And we've never been to a port like this. Most of the ports that we've been to, it's, a cruise port that was built in a city or something like that. Well, Costa Maya is just a cruise port built in the middle of nowhere. So everything's pretty well self-contained. It's a big compound. Probably a pretty, a little more party heavy of a port than what we're used to. But we did see that on the Carnival excursion website that we could have booked a tour with the aviary. They've got this huge aviary there, and it was only $14. I said, well, let's do it. Well, when I started reading TripAdvisor and some other stuff, they said the best thing to do is just to walk there yourself and book, and you just buy a ticket, because if you book through the cruise line, then you have to stay with this group. You have to go at a certain time. And we didn't want to be tied down with that. So took the short walk. Well, the pier is a long walk, but once you get to the port, it's a short walk. Found the aviary, went right on up. Super, super neat experience. All kinds of different species. And you get some really, really neat views. I think I may have sent you a couple pictures. You get some neat views of the port because you're up like 20, 30 feet in the air. So you're above everybody. You see the ships, you see the port, see the birds. It was really cool. Probably about an hour and a half long tour, self-guided, and just really, really neat. We enjoyed that. Walked around the port a little bit. It's pretty heavy on the souvenir shops where they try to get you to buy stuff, but we're okay with saying no to that. Did the tour, hung out a little bit, walked around some, and then went back on the ship. For me, and the rest of our group was kind of laughing at me about this, but the highlight for me for Costa Maya was we were docked next to Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas. And this was my first time seeing it in person. And I was just absolutely blown away by how big the ship is. I know they said it's the biggest in the world, but it's like, that was incredible.
When you were docked, you say you were docked next to it, so they have like the two piers there, like an L shape, I guess you could say. Were you side by side, or were you at one dock and Icon was at the other?
We were perpendicular. Okay. So if you walked to the back of the Dream, you were looking at Icon of the Seas, so you could see the whole ship, because it was us, the Carnival Jubilee, one of the Virgin Voyages, Brilliant Lady, Scarlet Lady, one of those, and then Icon of the Seas. And it's kind of crazy because at the time we were actually, I think, the smallest ship in port because the others were huge. And the Icon, whenever we were walking away and we turned around, I said, man, it's crazy. I mean, it is phenomenal, gorgeous ship though, but crazy big.
Interesting. So then after your day in Costa Maya, what was up next?
So we left there pretty late because we didn't get to Costa Maya. We got off the ship at like 1 something. And so get back on time was 8:30. And I think push off time was 9 o'clock. So just a little short ride over to Belize. Myself, my father-in-law, he went. Myself and my daughter, we stayed on the ship. Belize is a tender port. And I know sometimes the wait for that can get kind of dicey. But my mother-in-law, she is either diamond, platinum, whatever one. So she gets these priority tickets for the tender. So if anytime she wants to go down, she can go down, bring her party of however many with her, they get her on. But anyway, me and Ava stayed on the ship, and she pretty much had the water park to herself. Ate probably enough, pizza and ice cream to sink the ship. And we just had a really nice, relaxing day in the pool. All the pools were empty, and it was super nice. Weather was great. It was strange though, because it was great, but it was hot. So Costa Maya was, 78 and breezy. Cozumel, which would be the next day, was 82 and breezy. But Belize was 98 degrees. It was just really weird. It was extremely hot, but thankfully it was also breezy. But anyway, the three of them, they got off, they walked around the port a little bit and found a local guy that for, $20 a person, gave them a couple hour tour around the city. And they were really, really happy with that. And he showed them all the different places, and it was neat. They seemed to really enjoy that. And they got back on the ship fairly early. I think push off time was 5:30, and I think they were all back on for probably 3:30 or something like that.
Yeah, when you're that far south, you're encroaching on that equator heat, right?
Yeah, and it must be like in a pocket or something, because it was still breezy, but it was just crazy because I saw the forecast that said surely this is not accurate because it was 10 to 12 degrees warmer than both ports. But sure enough, it was hot. Felt like home. Felt like South Louisiana.
And then you wrapped it up with Cozumel. How was your day there?
Yeah, Cozumel was nice. I'm pretty sure that every cruise that we have ever been on stops in Cozumel. So we are extremely familiar and comfortable with that port. We typically avoid all of the tourist areas. And actually, my in-laws, they had some friends that were at one of the resorts leading some scuba dives. They actually used to own a dive shop here in town, and they're retired. They sold the business. So once a month, probably they go down. And I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's a little bit further out. If you go up through the port and then you take a left, you walk, a couple blocks, maybe half a mile, but it's called El Cid.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I've been there many times.
Yeah. Gorgeous place. My first time going there, we walked, pushed, Ava in the stroller, and all of us walked, and we met the friends there and had, the best. I thought Pancho's Backyard had good guacamole. This gives it a pretty good run for its money. Mm-hmm. This was good stuff and cheap, super cheap. I think because we had, some drinks, some Cokes, guacamole, some other stuff. And the ticket for 5 of us was less than $20. Nice. But the place was absolutely gorgeous. I told my wife, I said, we may have to sneak away one weekend and just fly down. But a beautiful view of the ships. We were sitting on this huge covered porch, and Ava wanted to go play in the water a little bit. And they have it's not really a beach, but they have like a little, you've seen it, a little 30-foot wide section that does dip down under the water. Mm-hmm. But super, super nice. We were very pleased with that. But Ava was getting a little bit tired. So we, said our goodbyes, and myself, my wife, and Ava, we started walking back. And I wanted to get a couple souvenirs for folks at home, but we didn't want to go in the touristy area. So we found a couple local places right there by El Cid and got some really, really cheap souvenirs, got to talk to some of the locals, and really nice day. And this is probably the first time that we've been in Cozumel that we haven't gotten rained on. So that was a plus. I think when we were in Cozumel June of last year, there was like a flash flood, and we were walking through the main streets right there by the port in shin deep water.
Oh, geez.
So it was crazy. But this time it was nice. The wind was pretty, it was pretty windy again there, but it really didn't cause any issues whatsoever. And we were docked with lots of other big ships. It seems like every port that we did, except for Belize, we were there with, the largest ships in the industry. So the ports were incredibly crowded.
El Cid is an excellent resort to go to if you're just trying to hang out by the ship, make it a pool day, and you pay like $65, but I think 30 of it goes to food and beverage credit. So it's a really good deal all around and fairly close to the pier, I guess, depending on where your ship docks.
Yeah, at the door, they kind of stopped us to make sure we weren't just coming to freeload.
Right.
We said, no, we've got so-and-so that's staying here. We're coming to see them. They're like, oh, okay, we'll come on in. And super nice. We were very, very impressed with that little place.
You leave Cozumel, you have one sea day back in Galveston, Texas. How was the debark process?
Not really an issue, at least not for us, because we've been through this before, so we know what to have out, we know what to have ready. This is how you quickly identify some of your first-time cruisers, because we had several folks in front of us that didn't have their paperwork or whatever ready, so they would have to throw open their suitcase and get all these things. And it's like, no, Customs does not want to see your sail and sign card. Right. They want to see your proof of citizenship. But the plan at the beginning, parking at Terminal 28, paid off because we walked down the steps of the terminal and there was the car sitting right there.
Sounds pretty flawless. Any first-time tips for someone sailing Carnival Dream or doing that Western Caribbean itinerary?
Yeah, I'm part of all these different Facebook groups with cruising, and what we've learned, and this is not really specific just to having a toddler, but it comes in handy. Sometimes less is more. We see people that pack so much stuff and bring so many things on with them, and we have come to really appreciate being able to walk on with just literally a fanny pack, an extra diaper. That's pretty much it. But if there's a first-time tip for the Dream, get familiar with it before you get on the ship. It's one of those that if you're not used to navigating the Dream class, it can be kind of tedious, because there were so many times whenever we would get off the elevator and somebody thought that they could walk through this deck of the ship or whatever, and they couldn't. So just study up a little bit, get familiar with it. And once you figure out the Dream class, you're going to be set. What
was the highlight for your family?
I was thinking about this on the way over here, and it was this was a tough one to narrow down. But just kind of reflecting on the past few years and everything that we've done together, just really every night when we all got to sit down at the dinner table together and realize that it's kind of a generational thing, because my parents, Paige's parents, my wife, her parents, they traveled, their entire lives with kids. And now here we are with, our kid traveling with the grandparents. And it was just a highlight every night, getting to sit down and just reflect on that.
For the price you paid of this cruise, and it sounded like you had a really good stateroom, was the value there?
Absolutely. Hands down. The only thing that I forgot about this time is because Ava was, the last time we brought her on a cruise, she was under 2. So we didn't have to extend gratuities for her. This time, now that she's over 2, we did. But again, was not an issue because they bend over backwards to make sure she is happy. And we were so thankful for that. But definitely worth the money. The price that we paid for this particular stateroom, we can't complain at all.
All right, Eric, final thoughts of Carnival Dream.
Absolutely beautiful ship. I understand that it's going in for dry dock, I think maybe next year or something like that. But just another good example of a well-made ship, absolutely beautiful. And they take very, very good care of her. Can't wait till we can get back on that ship again.
We've been talking with Eric about his 6-night sailing aboard Carnival Dream out of Galveston, Texas. Eric, thank you so much for sharing you and your family's vacation with us.
Absolutely, Doug. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on again.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,